Okay, well, it was so great to watch this film with all of you, all of our queer and allies activists. So, a few more people have to get seated.
Okay, here you go. Oh, you got it.
Okay. We're going to have our panelists, and they are going to they're going to present a little bit about their decade of activism, something like that. And then we'll have a discussion afterwards. So, our first panelist is Tina Gianoulis. Tina was born and raised in southern United States. She's of Greek origin, and she moved here to the Pacific Northwest in 1976. And Tina began doing Palestine solidarity work in 1988. She was part of the Palestine panel project of the lesbian work group. These days, Tina is an organizer, a co-organizer of various Kitsap County groups, including the Kitsap Palestine Solidarity Coalition and the Bainbridge and Kingston Ferry ceasefire demonstrations that are held every Sunday.
Yeah.
And she's one of the members of the Elder Dykes and Queers for Palestine that put on this event. And Tina?
I have to sit up here all by myself, huh?
No, everybody should go up.
So yeah, I'm Tina. I'm 71 years old. I moved to the Seattle area in 1975, and like any good dyke, I followed a woman here, but I was also really drawn by the strong, politically active lesbian community in Seattle that I'd heard so much about. And I worked on things almost as soon as I got here, as soon as I could. But in 1988, when the first Intifada started, I really knew next to nothing about Israel and Palestine. I had some romantic ideas about, a homeland for the Jews after the Holocaust, but I really didn't know about the cost to the Palestinian people of that. And but once the Palestinians started fighting back, once the Intifada started in that particular time, I started to educate myself and I started to learn things. And who I really learned things from first was Jewish dykes. And some friends of mine were in a group called Semitic Women Take Action that was Jewish and Arab women, working on issues like this. And out of that group came the idea of having a women's action to support the Intifada. And I just want to say, the group I was in was called the Palestine Panel Project, and there's various people here. Wave, Janice and Susanna, Margaret, Golda, wave or stand up. There are a lot of people in and out of the group at different times, and Sue, who helped organize this event, should be here but is home with COVID. But, so anyway, when we got together, we started meeting to do this women's action, and just kind of coincidentally, it was only lesbians who showed up. So after a while, we said, okay, we're a lesbian group. And what we thought about was that the first thing we felt like was really needed was education. Felt like Americans knew next to nothing, like me, about Israel and Palestine. And a lot of people felt like it was just too complicated to ever possibly understand. And, having educated ourselves somewhat by then, we realized that, you could understand it. There were things to learn that you could actually learn about why things were the way they were. And so we thought we would make these panels of information, and we would take them around and educate people. So we physically made out of wooden canvas these 4 panels. One was conditions in the occupied territories, effects on women and children, who is the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, which at that time was only considered a terrorist organization here, even though it had lots of governmental functions. And how is the U.S. involved? So that was the first 4 panels. And so after we made them, and they were like, paper glued to canvas. It was old school. And we decided our first action was going to be take them to Pike Place Market. And the market's kind of a great place to do a demonstration. And during the 25-mile march a couple of weeks ago, a contingent of the group I was with went through the market, and I wasn't with them at that moment, but it sort of brought it full circle to me, because they had great experience there. People at the market are like looking for something different. They're not like so pissed off like they're at Westlake that you're in their way shopping. It's like you're taking your picture and taking your flyers. And so it was a successful launch. And for the next 10 years, we operated the Palestine Panel Project. And we took our panels to more things than I could possibly mention, but we took them to other people's events and set them up. We had our own events with movies and panels where we took them, and we sometimes just put them somewhere and left them, like Seattle Central Community College. Put them in the library window, which we thought was a great coup. And so shortly after that, Anson Leitner, who I don't know if people know who he is, he's a rabbi. At that time he was head of the Jewish Federation, and he saw the panels in the window and demanded they be taken down. And so the college did it, and then called us to tell us they'd done it. And so we went to them and said, well, how about if we don't censor them? How about if you put them back and we have an event and let Leitner come and talk, and we'll talk. And they did that. And so they put the panels back up in the window, so we really felt like that was a victory. And a big part of what we felt like was our work, along with Palestinian support, was combating anti-Semitism on the left and on the right, and against Jews and Arabs, because Arabs are Semitic people too, and a lot of the same stereotypes, negative, hurtful stereotypes, are used to repress both people. And so we felt like that was a message we really wanted to get across. And then another thing we really saw as part of our work was to amplify the work of the Jewish left that was opposing the occupation, people that were isolated, marginalized, and at risk in Israeli society. And we especially were really in awe of groups where women's groups and groups where Palestinian and Israeli women worked together. So almost every event we did was some kind of fundraiser, usually a hat passed around or donations, and we sent money to groups like Women for Women Political Prisoners, the Jerusalem Link, groups where women were working together for peace. And we also supported Women in Black, which was just getting started at that time. And I think of the first Women in Black we helped organize, and it was one Friday of every month we stood at the Federal Building at rush hour, and that was in 1989. And so, I have to see where I am now. And so in the course of doing that, we realized we needed maybe another panel about that issue. So we made a 5th panel that was about resistance within Israel to the occupation. And so the 2 kinds of work we mainly did, one was doing education work within the lesbian community. And there were lots of venues at that time, but a place we did a lot of events was the Wild Rose. The owner of the Wild Rose, Breyer, at that time was real politically aware, and she would let us have the bar on Sundays when it wasn't very busy and for free, and we did lots of events there. And it's a thing that happened, and the other kind of work we like to do, or did, was, we felt like was important to do, was working with, in coalition with other groups that were not queer in any way necessarily, but we're also doing Palestinian support work. And that was also exciting and inspirational. We learned a lot. There were times it was hard, and one time we were organizing an event with a group that included like Palestinian Solidarity Committee. It included, I can't remember every group that was in it. There were some men from one of the mosques. There were various other Arab and South Asian people involved in the group. And so at one point we were doing a flyer, and they were sort of defining who we were. So they said, you know, as Christians, Muslims, and Jews. And well, those of us who weren't any of those things, which was, you know, mostly our lesbian group, we didn't want to identify that way. So we said, well, how about if we put in lesbians too?
Lesbian is my
And some of
religion.
these guys were like, no, I would never pass up a leaflet that had the word lesbian on it. But we had a really good experience there because several of the Arab and South Asian allies that we were working with spoke up for us and said, now that we were doing the work too, we needed to have our identities recognized, and they're very supportive. And so that helped get through that situation. And so for the future, we decided to put lesbian in our name. So we became the Palestine Panel Project of the Lesbian Work Group. And it wasn't very poetic, but we could always say we had to put our name on the leaflet, and then we could get lesbian on it. So, and then, I guess that's about sort of what I was going to say mostly, but as I was looking back over our history, I was thinking about what we did, which, you know, was education and feeling like we really needed to educate, you know, Americans who know so little. And then when, after October 7th, I started doing organizing again in a major way out where I live in Kitsap County. And we have a little group out there, and we were trying to figure out what to do. And right away, the first thing that we were talking about is we need to educate people, because Americans don't know anything about Israel and Palestine, and they think it's too complicated and they can't possibly understand it. So it was a little demoralizing to feel like, you know, here, whatever it is, 40 years later, we're still dealing with the same level of kind of societal ignorance. But the difference to me is that it's really heartening, is that we did all that work in tiny little rooms with tiny little audiences. And to see this mass movement that's risen up now is really something. You know, it makes me feel like, you know, it kind of at the end of that movie when they were saying, someone was saying, you know, that they hadn't felt so positive before, and it was, you feel a little, when you know what's coming, you feel a little painful for that person, but I do feel like there's this way in which things feel very positive, that there's so many people in this fight now.
Thanks so much, Tina. It's such a rich history. It's such a rich history. We're going to move right along instead of having a discussion later. So our next speaker is the director of the documentary, Dean Spade. And obviously, Dean was one of the activists featured in the film who confronted the Seattle lesbian, the LGBTQ Commission. Dean is a lawyer and a professor at Seattle U, and he's the author of the much consulted book, Mutual Aid, Building Solidarity During This Crisis and the Next.
Thanks, DJ. It was so cool to see people using the movie, you know, again and consistently. And I've been getting a lot of like requests from people in all parts of the world to add. People are giving us captions files, and we're adding captions. Like now we have captions in Albanian and soon we have captions in Turkish. And it's really cool to see that it's still useful, even though it's a decade-old movie. And I just have to say, like, it was so meaningful to me. The first time I met DJ and Sue was like something totally unrelated to activism. We met like in a van. And I was like, oh my God, there's a prior generation of queer anti-pinkwashing activists. I had no, you know, like I never had found any anti-Zion, it was so hard to find that prior generation of anti-Zionist queer activists, because all of the work, and you hear it in what Selma says a lot in the movie, just like it's all been so isolating for so long, which also is why it's so heartening this moment, just as you were just saying, to have this larger mobilization happening, even though it's under conditions that are, just unbearably brutal, just to even ever see the needle shift on this. And I can't even imagine how much more isolating the work was at the time that you all were doing it. And I just really feel a lot of deep appreciation for that work. I want to just share a little bit of context for the movie and things that happened afterwards that are kind of fun to hear, like if you just saw the movie, just about the story. So one is just like the reason we made the movie is because the time we made it, the only way to learn about pinkwashing was mostly through reading kind of dense things. Like there just wasn't anything out there that was like a story that you could just pass around. So like we made a movie with the idea that you could have a free event in your community, you can watch it online for free, which you can, with captions in as many languages as possible, and just have it be like something that anyone could use to start this conversation, like on their campus or in their religious group or in their friend circle or whatever, to make it easier. So I think the movie really follows that kind of formula, like this is what pinkwashing is, this is what normalization is, this is what is going on with Israeli colonization, this is a hopeful message. It's really got that kind of like, go out and do it, Maybe sometimes it's a little simplistic in that way, but that was our goal. And the editing is very like, feel this now, This is what propaganda is. I think that this is not known, and obviously pinkwashing is not exclusive to Israel, although they are the leaders in it. But like, the entire Obama administration was like a big pinkwashing, administration, and Biden does it, and everybody does it now, and every institution does it now. A few things. Just so you guys know, I wish we made this more clear. These commissions, LGBT commission and the other commissions the city of Seattle have, they're all volunteer. It's like people who might want to add something to their resume. So it's so intense. And when we had that first screening here, that was talked about earlier, two of the commissioners, Eleazar and one other person, came, and they were like, they apologized, and they were like, we were so fucked over, and they told us their story in this room. That's not in the film. So those are actually amazing people who were put through something so fucked up. And they were basically made the scapegoats, and so I just want to name that. A couple other things. After this, I wish we had focused less on Stand With Us and more on A Wider Bridge, which was a smaller organization at the time, but they are an organization that put themselves out as like a Jewish gay organization, but they're just an Israel advocacy organization, and they're actually much more dangerous than Stand With Us, because they look progressive, and a lot more progressive type liberal people get sucked in, and they were really focused on campus organizing. Additionally, they've even hired staff campus organizing, so that's actually the much sketchier propaganda machine than Stand With Us, which is just they are very over the top hate group, So I wish we focused more on that group, which has gone on to do many horrible pinkwashing things. The mayor of Seattle at this time was Murray, some other creep, and he was a gay creep, and he got really sucked into this and went to the next Tel Aviv Pride and was featured there. So we did a pretty fun action on Not Good Day that year that he was about to go to that Pride, and we went there with a million rainbow balloons. We were all dressed as a giant rainbow. I recommend everybody in a monochromatic outfit. It was really, the photos are out there on the film website. And we were really trying to be what the fuck's going on with the city of Seattle, forming an even deeper relationship with Israel through the frame of pinkwashing. We fought to get a screening of the movie at City Hall after it came out. We were this is the only time that something such as the LGBT Commission will ever be famous. So we went on a screening here, and we went to the LGBT Commission over and over again, and the Jewish Federation would show up and fight us on it, they actually cared. It was so wild. Eventually we did screen it at City Hall. Some of our friends joined the LGBT Commission eventually, and then eventually the mayor made it impossible to join once we got approved by him. I don't think it's worth joining this commission, and they don't do anything important usually, but it was kind of interesting that this thing became a site for our fight for a little while. And after the movie came out, a bunch more national pinkwashing controversies happened. There was a big controversy, Kate and I can remember if it was 2016 or 2017, where there was a big pinkwashing controversy at the big Creating Change conference, which is the biggest kind of gay for pay conference where gay nonprofits go nationally. It's a 35-year-old conference. It's put on by the task force. And A Wider Bridge was having some kind of event there, and all these people protested in the hallways, and it was mostly really led by queer and trans people of color. And there's all these incredible photos of people with a big banner outside and stuff, and then that was all framed as anti-Semitic in a way that I think was the framing was very racist against the queer and trans people of color who were responding. So that was a whole moment, and that same summer, the Dyke March in Chicago had big controversy about. So this stuff started to become much more national controversies. In ways that were pretty interesting. Before that, it would often be a controversy around a film festival or an event, like what you see in the movie. And it's, the conversation expanded. This work, I've stayed part of this work in different ways. One of the ways people are focused on this is like trying to get like drag performers we know not to go to Tel Aviv Fest. I know you're all connected to like famous drag performers. This is like something we can push on people to do. That's like one area specifically of pinkwashing where we can like honor the cultural boycott. There's a newer project called Queer Cinema for Palestine that maybe some people saw. There's a lot of efforts to like get filmmakers to pull their movies out of stuff in Tel Aviv and then also to put on really good alternatives to that. One of which, Kate from Quit in San Francisco, Queers United Against
Undermining
Israeli terrorism. One of the oldest anti-pinkwashing groups, again in the country. They put on a film festival called Outside the Frame several years ago that this movie showed at, and their fight was about trying to get the Frameline Queer Film Festival in San Francisco to stop accepting money from the Israeli government. And this year they won that after 17 years of fighting that. You should look at our website. Quit is like really, like, there's so much to learn about not only how what the topics they organize around, but how they've done it for so long, so well, really deep. And the last thing I want to say is just that I hope that what this makes clear, like for me, I came into this fight around Palestine alongside all my other work from the mid-90s that was like, it was work against the like gay assimilation agenda that was like marriage, military, and hate crimes laws, right? It was like, we believe in a queer liberation that is anti-police, anti-military, and anti-marriage, and anti-private property, etc. And the whole frame, what makes pinkwashing possible is that right-wing gay agenda that has been sold as the gay agenda in the United States. Like, it's what makes it possible for the people in the city council meeting to be like, but I could get married in Israel and I could serve in the military, right? Like, if you make gay liberation synonymous with getting married and joining the military, then you can make Israel quickly have a pinkwashing strategy, or the Obama administration have one, or the Biden administration. And so I feel like I just wanted to name that, since we're this is designed as an intergenerational dialogue, and we're getting younger as we go. And I just want to name that, for me, that is what happened, is that in the mid-90s, many of us identified what was then the nascent movement for same-sex marriage, or I would not call it a movement, the nascent advocacy by a few white lawyers for same-sex marriage that came to be incredibly corporate-sponsored and to take over the imagination about what queer liberation is. And we were against that and for like a pro-sex, radical, anti-war, anti-racist, anti-colonialism, queer liberation and trans-liberation. And that has, in many ways, that thing did take over and win, and it does pinkwash the cops, and it does pinkwash all of our opponents, and then it makes possible pinkwashing entire warfare fronts, right? Like, then Israel in 2005 is like, oh, we've got a good idea for our brand, and they lose nothing, and it has no benefits for queer and trans people. Like, it's never about us. The audience of this shit is straight people who tie their weird feeling about like gays representing liberation to whatever the project is that's seeking cover, we don't get anything out of it. Our lives don't improve. It expands prisons, police, all the things that kill queer and trans people all over the world disproportionately. So I feel like that's just really important to hold on to. And what I hope the movie can still do is help people learn how to combat those talking points that, co-opt our struggles for freedom. And I'm really grateful that this amazing group of elder dykes put this on and made this moment happen for all of us. And I hope you'll all spread the word that anybody can watch this movie for free online, and that I can say, if people email the website, they can get a high resolution copy to do screenings like this and have it look good and not be streaming. And so it's just available for folks to use.
Okay, I have looked at my watch, and I see we're really going to run out of time, but we have one more speaker, and then we'll decide together what we'll do. But I want to introduce Fatima on my right. She is a queer Lebanese artist and organizer affiliated with Palestinian. Palestinian is a grassroots collective of Southwest Asian and North African feminists who are in the diaspora. Palestinian is dedicated to organizing at the intersection of gender justice and anti-colonialism. Alongside their role as a full-time artist, they are currently undergoing training to become an end-of-life doula.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I just want to start off by saying, just sharing something personal. My first ever gay experience was with a Palestinian. We were children, and I remember us loving each other deeply and, you know, playing house, doing all of these cute things together. So we exist. Queer Palestinians exist. They're out there. And, you know, I want to say this, and I want you to hear me out as I'm saying it. I have a homophobic mother, okay? And she also has a homophobic mother. I love my mother dearly, and I'm not saying this to disrespect her, but homophobia exists in every corner of the world. And a lot of the times, you know, my mother is homophobic because she doesn't have the information she needs to understand. And throughout my life, I've been kind of like feeding her bits and pieces here and there. So now she's accepting of all of my gay friends. You know, I tell her all of my friends are gay. Just so you know, my friends coming over, they're gay. Please be nice because they're a human being. And then when I speak to her in that way, oh, they're a human being. You believe in God. God says to treat people with respect and love, and it says that in the Bible, it says that in the Quran. So why would you go and judge someone or laugh at them or wish them terrible things? That's not very Muslim of you, Mama. And when I speak to her that way, she starts to feel and she understands. She doesn't need to be open to me and my queerness. She doesn't need to know that. That's fine. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I want to be able to talk about my people who some of them are homophobic without people deeming the entirety of the Middle East to be homophobic. Like, we black and brown people deserve to complain just as much as white people. And this is my 4th time watching this documentary. I found out about it 3 weeks ago, and I've just been so obsessed with the energy that Salma carries. And, you know, watching that moment of defeat really hurt. It made me really angry, but then focusing on Salma's resilience and like, she did not give up. She's literally like, as they say, Palestinians, they're seeds and they spread and they grow. And that's exactly what you all did. You pestered and showed up in every space. And sometimes it does take years to get to the place that we want to be. And, you know, solidarity is just so important. You just have to keep pushing. As exhausting as it is, you have to keep trying. Because 15 years later, you know, something might pass. You will get what you want, inshallah, you know? And that's just the reality for us, for black and brown people especially. We have to fight so hard for freedom and liberation, for our voices to be heard. And solidarity is quite contagious. And I say this because I was introduced to organizing by my friend Maryam, who's also in Palestinian, and they are a lot younger than me. And watching them show up and just like work as hard as they do for Palestine, it spread onto me. And being around people and seeing all of you, like I see all of your faces out there. I know half of you. Like I don't fully know you, but I've seen your faces out there. And when I see you all out there, it makes me want to show up harder. So don't ever give up. This is something that I took away from this documentary. I will never give up. And the energy that Salma carried, also, it carried me too. You know, she is just so powerful. She came in with her feelings and she was so honest and, you know, vulnerable. And she, yes, was sad for a moment, but picked herself back up and continue to organize. And you can organize and still be sad. I mean, I'm sad all the time. And you don't have to be a part of an organization to do anything. I mean, you know, if you have an idea, go and do it. The 25-mile walk, for instance, I mean, like 25 miles walking, first of all. You know, like, I'm sure that was so exhausting. But people did it, people showed up. And a lot of the organizers for that were beginners. You know, if you don't have to have, let's say, like, the political knowledge, but, you know, a lot of us have passion and we have hearts, and just lead with that. There's another thing I wanted to say. But yeah, thank you for having me. And oh, I just wanted to bring, you know, shed light on what is most important right now, and that is fundraising. So I'm gonna like hang out a little bit after the show. My friend Ala and I are, you know, taking in a lot of donations for, there are 2 Palestinian families here who both have disabled kids and they need treatment. So focusing on fundraising is very, very, very needed right now. And if you would like to tap into that, please just come up to us and we'll give you our Insta handles and we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the panelists and the audience so respectfully and enthusiastically listening.
I need to pass these things out.
Yeah, Janice is going to pass out our sign-up list and the little half sheet that is a resource list that has event calendars here in the local area. It's got the name of all the organizations that we know about that are doing solidarity work for Palestine. And let's see what else is on there. Oh yeah, the Elder Dyke and Queers for Palestine. Email us there for you to get in touch with us. And now we have this dilemma. I spoke to Suji at the beginning to see, okay, what time do we have to start wrapping it up in order to respect the staff's desire to close the theater and this place at 9:30? And Suji, has it changed at all?
No, it hasn't changed, but I think you can take your time with the final part of your panel.
Okay,
We'll, you know, we'll be out there to remind folks to head out.
okay.
But, yeah,
Suji told me that we would have to start wrapping up at 9 o'clock, and it's about 2 minutes to 9. So,
A few comments.
what should we do? we don't
We have like
really have
yeah, take 15 minutes.
15 minutes? Okay, so then 15 minutes for anyone in the audience to say what's on your mind. How about that? And oh yes, please raise your hand and Golda will come around with the microphone. So, because we do want everyone to be included with hearing issues as well.
Hi, hello. Close, okay.
Could you say your name?
Hi, I'm Safi. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for the work that you do, everyone on the panel. It means a lot. And I guess I have a question, which is there was a lot of uplifting of the power of education and of information. And I think that as someone who has a Palestinian family and who works at a university, one of the things that I've been really struggling with is just meeting people every day who have access to so much information and yet they still don't care. There's like I keep telling, mostly Fatima, but like there's a special kind of dead that people go in the eyes when you talk about the disproportionate brutality and loss of life that Palestinians have to be faced with, and it's people who should know better. So I guess my question to you all is like, how do you deal with that? How do you move forward when faced with that?
I think we should get all the questions first, just because we have so little time. Just get more
Yeah,
people.
that seems like a good plan.
Do other people have questions, and I'll bring them up to
Answers
you?
to that question.
Answer to that question?
Or comments about how we can keep working together intergenerationally.
Ideas, experiences.
Oh, I have my so yeah, thanks all for coming out. It was good to see the film. A major message of the film appears to be that we should not and cannot dialogue with the genocidal settler colonial state. But the main strategy presented in the film is that, with victory celebrated at the end, despite what was actually many failures that show that you cannot, through dialogue, get a small commission inside a genocidal state, the United States, to take a genuine stance against a genocide that state participates in. Is there not harm done in promoting this approach as like a feel-good story? That's what I mean. We have to escalate from Palestine. I'm just kind of confused. And I mean that genuinely. Like, I'm not, like, yeah.
Anybody want to, down there?
Hi, I don't have a question, but my name is Irene Aquitiquid. Actually, I live in California, but I lived in Seattle here in the early, 1986 to 1994. And so I came in when you started that Women in Black. I remember that. You guys started that up. But in any case, I am an elected official for my tribe in California. We do, we run our tribal government, and we have many tribes in California, or close to 111, but they're all very small tribes and very remote tribes. But a friend of mine, Sheila Fox, she asked me, she was trying to fundraise for a Gaza family, and she says, can you approach the tribes to ask for donations? So I thought about it. I said, why not? We have the same struggles. We've been through it. So that was kind of my way of trying to help by reaching out to the local tribes to fundraise to help these families get out of their situation. But I'm going to continue to do that. So I just wanted to share that's kind of what I could do, and I live in a very rural area, so there's not a lot of action going on. This is actually the first Gaza event I've been to that I finally got, I wanted to come. I came a day early because I'm here for the week for work, but I'm glad I came because I really got educated on more details about it. So, no questions. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Let's see.
Wait, someone is next already.
Okay,
then-
so,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm
Followed by that person.
okay. I'm a Chinese queer immigrant in Seattle, and yeah, our community have also like, what's up?
You don't want people reaching in right now.
Oh.
Can't hear you.
Okay.
Close.
Okay, so our community also have host a series of events for educational purpose and raise awareness for Palestine. We're like Chinese queer immigrants community, and yeah, so I think it's like we can believe in those like transnational like solidarity things. And personally, I can also feel resonate with this documentary, like as a people of color, and also have some like complexity, like political background, like deep rooted in me. Yes, so I just want to share that. And yeah, and I also want to host a screening of this thing with my community in Seattle.
Golda, right here.
Is that me? Hi everybody, Yasmin. I have a couple of quick thoughts to share. First, my deepest thanks to all the folks who organized this. I have so much profound love for the elder dykes in the room. I learned so much from you and from your generation, so thank you for the work that you've always been doing. So a couple of quick thoughts. One is I'm an Arab Muslim queer woman, and that's sort of a complicated thing to be. What I think something that's important to sort of emphasize is that pinkwashing relies on two things really profoundly. One is Islamophobia and Orientalist ideas of what the Middle East is, what Arabs are, what Muslims are, that we're fundamentally incapable of being liberated in these social senses or others. Democracy is impossible, etc. And the second thing it relies on is somehow pulling us apart as queer communities away from that population, that we're separate. You're either queer or you're Muslim. You're either queer or you're Arab. And the thing that I'll emphasize about that second part is that homophobia and transphobia and misogyny in the Arab and Muslim communities also relies on this idea of you're feminist, you're pro-abortion, you're pro-queer, or you're Arab, or you're Muslim, etc. And I say this not because I agree with this idea that we're fundamentally incapable of being liberated in our communities. There are complicated structural reasons, one of which is colonialism that creates this reality. But I say this because it's really important for Muslim and Arab queers to be organizing as such, which I know is not an easy thing to say, but I say this to all the Muslim and Arab queers in the room who might be interested in doing that work and in developing the politics required to do that work, because I don't think it's done. We haven't had a long enough time and a long enough practice of doing it, but folks in Palestine are doing it. We just saw about Palestinian queer folks organizing and doing that work. I want to mention just a quick example of some years back I was involved in a panel in my neighborhood in New York, in Bay Ridge, which is the largest Arab community in the Northeast. And it was around the Orlando shootings, which involved a Muslim man who shot up a gay club. I can imagine you all can see sort of the intersections there. And that event was held in the heart of Bay Ridge, in the heart of that Muslim community. And it was an anti-Islamophobia event. It was also a pro-queer liberation event. And there were hijabi women in the front row, all kinds of queer folks all over the rooms, and we had a really constructive and beautiful discussion. I make no claims that queers are liberated in Bay Ridge. It was very hard for me to be out there with my partner, etc. It's a complicated and it's a long struggle that's going to take lots more than that. But solidarity is fundamentally possible, and the liberation of these communities is intertwined. We're one and the same, and we have to be doing the work together to figure this out. So I just want to encourage folks to talk to me, or Sophia, or Juju, who are interested in being part of that conversation.
Hi, I am, Apollo, there we go. Sorry, can't remember what areas you did. I'm Apollo, and one thing I thought was really, really cool to hear was that one of our panelists is a professor. I think that there's been a lot of suppression of pro-Palestinian views in education and academia specifically. I was someone who left education after a lot of pro-Palestine attacks for being pro-Palestine, and also there's a current teacher who is suspended throughout the year at Seattle Public Schools for his pro-Palestine views. So I think it's really cool to have that kind of solidarity in education, and I would really love to see more of that and working with more people to have solidarity between educators who are pro-Palestine and aren't afraid to speak up about the genocide.
I think that we need to have just one last comment or question.
My name's Calvin. I live in Seattle, and it was fun to see the movie again and remember that time. And it was also just really heartbreaking to see the movie and know what's happened this year specifically with Palestinians and the land of Palestine. So I was just thinking about also thinking about your comment back there, this movie, it sort of doesn't quite hit because it doesn't actually match what's happening in the world. It's kind of a lighthearted, we can do it. And I think you spoke to that too. So I was just thinking about, as a group, what regrets I have for what I wish I'd been doing since that time in Seattle. And, Tina, you were talking about all the organizing from back then, and just what are the things we wish we would have done, hindsight 2020?
If I could have some of the elder dykes and queers down here to help facilitate the closing, because I really do want to respect Northwest Film Forum staff. I know there wanted to be some announcements, right after this event. A few people are going to be flyering on Capitol Hill, which people could join. And let's see. Dante, you wanted to make an announcement, I think. What, DJ, on Capitol Hill?
Flyering.
Postering, putting up posters.
Yeah. Posters were made on Thursday night by this group, and they're out there, photocopies of those flyers, and that group wanted to go out with whoever else wanted to join them to put the posters up on Capitol Hill. So, any suggestions for further things that we need to do?
Maybe just get a final comment see if anybody wants to respond to any of the questions.
If there's maybe if there's any questions that any of you feel a burning desire or called to answer.
I mean, yeah, I guess what to do, what someone was saying.
What?
We can't hear you.
Use the mic.
Just Saki's question in the beginning, I feel like it's also an ask for help, because it is really hard to exist around people who should know better, but they're just being so stubborn. And they're just siding with and empathizing with Zionists because they just don't know enough. So I don't know what to do in those situations. Usually I just quit my job and I leave, but not a lot of people can do that, to risk their careers and do that. So I don't know. A part of me is I want to show them my true emotions and break down in front of them, and just scream at them and say, you are someone I trust and someone I love, or someone I care about, or you are my mentor, and you've known that I am Palestinian, and you introduced me as Palestinian to the people around you, yet you refuse to speak out for us in this moment. So I do believe in being honest with my emotions and showcasing that. Don't be afraid to cry in front of people. Don't be afraid to shake. Don't hold it in. People need to see that so that they can learn that their behavior is causing something. And that reaction shows them, oh, I just did something to hurt this person. So shake, be angry, raise your voice, be stern, cry, do whatever you need to do. Because in this moment, professionalism is out the fucking window.
I just want to briefly address Safi's question and that wonderful critical question that someone brought up in the back. Thank you for, I think it's so good to bring critical thoughts to a space like this, and that should be like something we all celebrate. That's awesome. These questions to me are very tied together. So liberalism tells us that if people just knew, the war would end, et cetera, whatever war it is. And that's fucking not true, right? Like, it's absolutely not true. And one of my biggest fears about this movie is that people could get a liberal message from watching it. And when I watch it now, I'm like, oh, you could. At the same time, movements for transformation do need political education. We're not like education's bad, we're just not like education's the only thing, which is what liberalism would tell us, right? So it's really complicated to hold this. So I would fear that people would think that when we were doing this activism, we were like, yeah, because the commission's important. The commission is not important. But every single site of pinkwashing is an important place to make trouble. You know what I mean? And so we wanted to make like a recipe, like please go make trouble no matter how small and irrelevant, you know, in your town. Like just do, it also felt impossible to do anything except for hyper locally at that time. You know what I mean? And now there's, I think, a little bit, and even in the years right after, there was some really cool national level controversies where it got into like the gay press and stuff. But at that time, it was just so hard to ever have to make enough trouble to make more people have to fucking confront that we were like not gonna vote. So to me, you know, the answer to that education problem, like, yeah, all of our universities and schools, they're all designed for colonialism. That is what they do, that's their business. We happen to be there and be anti-colonial. They are opposition. Our job is to make trouble for them, to be relentless in that. Not to be ever convinced that we're gonna negotiate them to be like fair spaces, nor this horrible colonial city government or any of the other levels of it. And the only way to achieve any of that change is through collective action, right? So liberalism also tells us to just do it as individuals. So we really, really desperately need to be with each other in that. I think it's so wonderful people organizing to go put anti-pinkwashing flyers all over this town during this like fucked up Pride Month commercial bust. I hope people will join these people in the corner who are doing this and you know go make trouble, and they bought special staple guns for you to use tonight. So, so I think, and it's not because we think the flyer will end the genocide, but because we hope to just recruit the fuck out of each other. And I forgot to mention a group that I hope you all pay attention to called Queer Trans Warband that we started here in 2017 to do anti-military recruiting activism at queer events because the fucking now we can join the US military. And we've just done a lot of messaging about like anti-police, anti-jail and prison building in this region, and Palestinian solidarity, and you know people are working on a whole new set of propaganda for this year's Pride events. We have a website up called Queer Trans Warband. I think getting involved, you know, in every single front of this and just being a pain in the ass in every single place, which has been shown to us by our Dyke elders for so long, is the way to go. But it's not because we want to convince our opponents, it's because we want to beat them. And also because people's minds change, not because they hear a good argument, but because they're like, wow, there's just a lot of people on the street. Like it's actually the pressure of overwhelming transformative force of people seeing that we are not afraid to take very militant tactics. That's actually what pushes the needle. I mean, our opponents, the fascists, know that. They're really good at it, right? And so to me, that's the downside of this movie is that it does only focus on these kind of political tactics. It doesn't show the broader movement that's part of, right? And so I think that's really real. So I hope when people do have your own screenings that you'll have this conversation after the screening as well.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't really get to the question of how to build an intergenerational movement, but I'm hoping we'll all take it home with us. Because that, you know, someone can figure out tonight, but it's a long-term thing, and if we can break down the barriers between us, you know, at different ages, and you know, not disappear the youngest of us or the oldest of us or anybody in there. So figure out how to do that. And I just want to hold up the shirt I'm wearing is from a Palestinian lesbian group called Aswat. The group doesn't exist anymore, but it did. And I just want to acknowledge, you know, yes, Palestinian lesbians who organized together.
Just real quick, since they want to close up, Alat and I will stand outside. So Alat is over